Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the D-Shift podcast. And we are going to talk all about how to become more empowered and how to heal yourself and how to really maybe discover your spiritual purpose by going through some of life's trials and tribulations, with divorce being one of them. So I would like to introduce you to my guest, Amie Wade. She is a certified life coach. She's a mind, body, and spirit practitioner, a Reiki master, a yoga teacher, and also a best-selling author. And I know Amie has a whole bunch of other life experiences and accomplishments that have really uniquely positioned her to be able to do this. So Amie, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. Great opportunity.
I am really excited to have you here because I think self-healing and really taking that journey of moving past whatever issues are causing us to repeat these perhaps difficult relationships in our lives are something that's so important. And this is such a specialized area. What got you into this particular area of life coaching?
Well, so much. It's just been a continuous journey since I started. I call my spiritual journey began at 28, even though we know it started eons ago. But my conscious spiritual journey started at 28. Personally, my history just involves in this lifetime abandonment. My biological father abandoned my mother when they found out she was pregnant. And then my mom having a lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem. And at that time is when you needed, right, quote unquote, needed a man to help support you. So she seeked out a man that was abusive. And so I had that coming right away into this life. Then a second stepfather who was abusive. And it was mental and emotional abuse, but still it's just as traumatizing for a young person. At 14, experiencing molestation and having a third stepfather. At the time, I didn't really realize how the degree of abuse there was, probably because I was immune to it by then. But at the age of 14, when I after I was molested, the thought of suicide was part of my life from 14 till my mid 30s. So that's quite a jaunt of holding on to that every single day. I never talked to anybody about it. So with all of that in my wheelhouse and as part of my package, my first marriage was controlling, was slightly abusive, which is what I knew, which I was drawn to. And at 28 is when I divorced. And I just knew it was just deep in my soul for many years that there was so much more to life than all the pain and all the suffering, and that we're supposed to hang on to that until we die, till we take our last breath. And so internally was just that question was, what else is there about life? There's got to be more about life than what I'm experiencing on this emotional level, but I didn't know what that was.
Right. Well, and thank you for sharing it's overwhelming when you hear people talk about all of these challenges that they have been through. And I'm sorry you had to experience that. I'm sorry any child has to go through that, because I think, unfortunately, your experience is not unique. And that's even sadder. I mean, it's sad it happened to you, but it's sad that today, and in 2024, this is still happening to young people, both boys and girls, in through bad choices by their parents. I don't mean to sound harsh to the parents that are making choices, but bringing that kind of abusive personality into the family is, I hate to say it, but it's a choice that somebody's making, right? that the kids have no control over. So I'm sorry, I think I cut you off there too, Amie. So you were in this place. but how did you get out of that muck and mire that you were, I mean, because you can see how somebody could get stuck in that very easily.
Absolutely. So I never told anybody about the being molested until my early 30s. My conscious spiritual journey, as I said, started at 28. And when you have that internal asking and you're really wanting some answers, I speak in terms of universe. The universe listens. So whether that's universe, God, angels, the terms that people use. Somebody handed me a book. It was by Sylvia Brown. And I read that book and it opened me up in so many different ways because it made sense to me. It resonated with me. I don't have a religious upbringing, so I was very open to information. But that book, it's Life on the Other Side and Back, I believe it was, it just made sense on answering some questions for me. And that book just opened up a huge toy box, I call, because I got so curious about what she was talking about and I wanted to know more about. She talked about reincarnation, she talked about energy, she talks about all these healing modalities, and I'm like, I need to know more about that. Interesting enough, when my son was born when I was 25. So when he was 6, we figured out he could see auras, he could see spirit, he could, I was just learning about that stuff. We found out he could actually see that stuff. And then that projected me or propelled me to learn even more faster. And I could not get enough. I couldn't read fast enough. Books were coming at me in so many different ways. I was like, okay, listen, universe. I can't read that fast. So slow it down a little bit. But it was so intriguing to me. And when we're in a space like that and we think we're doing something for somebody else and it actually is for you. Yeah. So in a sense, and this may be like a heavy thing to put onto a heavy responsibility, so to speak, to put on my son. But by having my son literally saved my life because I took this journey. And so learning about energy, learning about mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, mindset and what to do with those emotions that I'd been storing for so long, and meditation and our chakras. So just a huge variety of things, hypnosis and past life regressions, like all of it, just so much. It just so fascinated me in learning about myself and learning a little bit more about spiritual practice that didn't involve the dogmatic beliefs.
Right.
It was absolutely an amazing journey in a sense that I wasn't focused on me. I was focused on my son.
And I so appreciate what you said, because you may have started when you were 28. I started probably when I was 56. Like, not that, and I also not really a religious background. I've always called myself, agnostic at best, kind of leaning towards atheist. And that doesn't, I mean, but I have, it doesn't matter what a person's beliefs are. It's just how open you are to maybe considering other theories, other potentials, other possibilities. But I think it's so interesting because the book for me that did it was The Untethered Soul. That just for some reason snapped with me. Yeah. And I'm still not really woo-woo, but I'm going more that direction. And but I like the science-based stuff. I'm a science geek. I like to read. And it's interesting now how medicine is starting to catch up to the idea of vibrational energy, and that, that the body traps trauma and doesn't release it, that we have to work through this stuff energetically. And that so much of the disease and mental health issues and all of these kind of things are physical disease, and mental health issues are a result of that unworked trauma that's just burning up all our energy in our bodies. So it's fascinating how that
and
science is catching up.
Yes. and proof, right? That's what we want, is we want to see the diagrams and the proof. I, for several years, it was all in the woo-woo field that I was reading all the books, until I started listening to Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, and Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Right.
They were showing the proof of what energy is, the proof of our emotions, it was documented. And that, of course, I'm so fascinated in how our brain works and how it's connected to our body and all the things. Like, we are a full package: emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual. It is a whole package. And when you're in a healing process, it's not just one topic. It's not just the mental. It's all four.
Right.
And knowing or having more of an understanding of how they're all correlated. And it just makes me even more interested in myself, because the more I understand myself and how I operate and how I show up and how I react and how I respond and how I speak and my body language, the more I understand that about myself, the more I understand other people.
And and I was going to say, we don't even need, we can just, our own experiences can guide us. Like, we've all walked into a room where everybody is angry. We don't know what's going on, but we instantly feel that energy, that
Absolutely.
that tension, that we don't need to have been in there. Or we can read people's body language. That's all an energetic experience. So yeah, this is something that's so positive that we can take a look at this now, and we don't have to feel like we're weird or out there, whatever. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you were pretty out there if you even talked. Yoga was still something that only really weird hippies did yoga. That's what I grew up thinking. Now I'm a weird hippie that does yoga. But yeah.
Well, when the meditation was presented, I mean, it was presented in that first book with Sylvia Brown, but at the time I was a mental and emotional mess, and there was no way under the sun I was going to be able to meditate. I couldn't even imagine trying to sit, be quiet, legs crossed, fingers touching, chanting Om. Well, one of the things that is part of my experience is being an introvert. So it's very easy for me to revert back into that space of being introverted. I had to learn to be an extrovert. But when you talk about being in a room by yourself, sitting in a certain position and chanting Om, as soon as I heard that was my idea, that's what meditation was, that I had to chant. Introverts won't even do that if they're in a room by themselves. It's very uncomfortable. So everything was stacked against me. The busy mind, the emotional mess, all of it was stacked against me. And there's no way there was never a way I was going to meditate, ever. So about 4 years, I would not even practice, but I did keep reading. And I kept reading about it and all these books. Almost every book I read said, meditate. And I was like, no. But in that process, what I realized was, there are ways to bring yourself present without having to sit in a lotus position with all the things and chant Om. And so I created a class, some material about different ways to do that. And there's so many different ways to have a meditation practice. I just know these were the things that helped me in my journey. And it's more for like a beginner's type of thing than more an experience. So if you want, I can just name a few. Just focus on an affirmation. Breathe in part of that statement, and exhale part of that statement, and just get a rhythmic flow. Count your breath in and out. That actually is a great tool for somebody who has breathing problems, because our lungs are a muscle and we want to exercise it. And by using numbers, that gauges how well you're doing. A walking meditation, just focusing on your body. Notice how your feet feel. What are your arms doing? What's your body? What do you notice about the movement of your body? Or identifying things along your path. Just there's a bird, there's a tree, there's a flower, and there's a piece of paper. Like just being present, because what our mind wants to do something. And if it's so programmed on focusing on the struggles, focusing on the past, worrying about the future, we're all over the place. We're not present, and our body is in fight or flight mode in a constant state, and it's never actually relaxed. So it's so programmed to be that so busy, and we don't even realize it. We just think it's a natural state for us, and our body's actually tense. But when we take a moment to be in the present moment, and what does that mean? Well, just identify what you're looking at. What's in your room? Like I could just sit here and identify the things in my room, and that brings me in the present moment. No experiences happening that I think about from the past that causes all that stress. None of that's happening, and that helps me realize that like I'm okay, I'm safe right here, right now. So you want to, especially in the beginning of a meditation practice, is keep your mind doing something. So whether it's counting colors, objects, just think an affirmation, keep your mind doing something other than what you're used to doing.
Right. And so thank you for that, because you're right. Meditation doesn't have to be complex. There's this thing that I read about, or a study I read about, I'm sorry, where they actually had women who had been diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. And they had them, they had a test group that took all the treatments, no meditation. They had a test group that did all the same treatments. So nobody was being deprived of medical treatment, but they also added 5 minutes of guided meditation a day. And that I think they found a 42% reduction in a future diagnosis of cancer with the group that, or an increase in the cancer with the group that had done the meditation. So it does have a powerful, we think of meditation as just for our mind, but that also allows that cortisol to just, come out of our bodies. All our systems reset when we're doing that. And it's such a powerful exercise.
Yeah. And that, this is so beneficial for any situation. And in this, divorce, you're worry. Just bring it back to your breath and just come right back right here, right now, because everything's okay right now.
Right. And I was going to say, I had this, this teacher that did this meditation where you picked your favorite color and you imagine when you breathed in that color was like coming into your lungs. And then with the next breath, it was spreading out across your chest until you envisioned that your whole body was saturated in your favorite color. Yeah. And then every time you exhaled stress. And I still use that one because I'm not good at just doing my mind is blank. I start doing grocery lists. I do things I need to do. My mind doesn't stop. So I love having something to do. And I really think that's important, Amie. Thanks for bringing that up.
And when you sit down for your meditation, this is when I sit down and just focus on my breath. This is when ideas come to me. And so whether it's the grocery list, what you need to do when you get up from your meditation, or ideas, have a pen and paper next to you and just jot it down real quick, and then go back to your visualization or your breath. And if something else comes to you, write it down, because then you're not going to sit there with this voice in the back. Remember the milk, remember the milk, remember the milk. I wrote it down. I got to get milk when I go to the store. Okay, great. Now I can come back to my breath.
Right. And it's funny because the first time I started doing this was when I started doing yoga, and, you do Shavasana at the end, and the instructor would say, well, clear your mind. And I would be sitting there, and this is what was going on in my head. What the hell does she mean, clear your mind? How am I supposed to do that? And then I'd be like, what is everybody else doing? I wonder how they're doing it. And it was just like I had the chipmunks running around doing things. So I love know what that.
Yeah. If you don't know what that means, how do you practice that?
Yeah.
What do you mean clear my mind?
Right.
No. See, I don't teach that.
Yeah.
I'm like, your mind needs to do something.
So one of the things that you take women on this empowerment journey, empowerment and healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think or what do you see as the biggest misconception that people have about their ability to heal themselves from, those past traumas, those negative experiences, maybe those really damaging experiences that have happened in their lives? Is there a misconception people often have coming into this with you?
The biggest thing is that this is who they are and they have to hang on to it. It's not a true statement. It's an experience you had that you can learn and grow from. You can learn about yourself. You can learn about other people. So there's to me, there's two choices. You can remain a victim to your circumstances, a victim to your experiences, or be a student to your life. When I switched that mindset about myself and I started being curious about what I experienced and what was happening within myself, my belief systems, the programming, the habits, all the things, the mindset, the mind chatter. When I took some time to be curious about myself, and also learning in the meantime, because all these books I was reading and people I was listening to, realizing I don't have to live with that in me. I can use it to help empower me, meaning I can heal these layers that I've experienced and utilize that information to be and do better in my life, in my body. And as I do that for myself, I will automatically do it for other people. One of the biggest things is compassion. We forget that we need compassion for ourselves. Our little person inside of us, my little girl, needed to know she was safe, that she was loved, that she was accepted. And when I started nurturing my little girl and as the adult version of myself, giving the comfort and compassion to my little girl and everything she'd been through, then I can look at other people when they're angry, when they're being, out of control. Like I can look at them and just know what my little girl went through. And I can't even imagine what their story's like. I just have no idea what they've experienced in their life for them to be the way they are today. And so that compassion is huge, and so beneficial, because that changes the dynamics of a conversation.
Oh, sure. Because if you can't be compassionate and empathetic and at least understand the other person may have a very good reason for whatever their perspective is, no matter how different it is from you, then the only other thing you can do is judge them, right? And then that's all your energy going into, well, there's something wrong with them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can be okay until they change. Right. And that's the thing about empowerment is when we have an experience, I'm going to use the molestation as an example, but all the things that I experienced, we blame people for the anger that I'm holding, for the hurt I'm holding, right? I'm going to blame them for the experience because they did this to me and it's their fault. They were adults. They should have known better. What I have done is when you recognize when you blame somebody, you're giving them the power over you. So until they change, until they acknowledge what they've done, until they apologize, then I can't change. I can't be okay with me. I'm going to be a mess until they do something to recognize the pain they've caused me. Well, in my case, one abusive stepfather and my molester are both dead. So does that mean that now, because I can't get something from them for acknowledging, that I have to hang on to that for the rest of my life? That makes no sense. And so when I learned to heal that experience within myself and empower myself of, okay, this did happen to me, can't take that away. However, they don't get to have power over me. And the only way they do that is if I keep thinking about them, if I keep hanging on to the anger about it, if I keep hanging on to the shame and the guilt, then they still have power over me. They don't get to do that. And that's something too that helps build confidence when you're like, hold on.
Yeah.
This is not cool.
Yeah.
And you start to stand in your own power. It builds your confidence. You're not that timid or hurt or damaged person. The idea that I made it through this, look how courageous I was. Look how persistent I was. Look how strong I was. Look at all the things I faced, and I'm still here today, even though for like 30 years, I thought about suicide. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to deal with this anymore. It's because of the emotions that I had in my body that I didn't know what to do with. Yeah. Nobody could teach me.
Right. Right. That's a very powerful message because, as we were talking about before we got on the call, some women are in horrific relationships with very abusive partners, physical, emotional, mental, financial, and those partners are not going to apologize. They are, whether you want to label them with a mental health label, or whether you just want to say they're total jerks, or you want to call them something else. Be my guest. I do when I'm not talking on a podcast. If you're going to wait for them to apologize to heal, you're going to be frozen right where you are for forever. You have to do this on your own. So, Amie, what do you think of all the things we have talked about? And we have covered a lot. What do you think is the kind of the top of the mind thing that you would like people to remember from this conversation?
It's the idea that you do have control over yourself. You do have the tools, the resources, the ability to change your life if you choose. And it's a matter of, we're not in this alone. We are not meant to be in this alone. We are not meant to feel that we're alone. We are here to help each other. That's why we have books, we have teachers, we have friends, we have the resources to help us learn, grow, expand, heal, and keep going. And it's the idea of it's important for people to reach out to those they feel comfortable with, and also those, I needed this myself, to give you a kick in the ass.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
You're not just staying stuck and mulling over in the trauma and drama of your life. You remember that game, Barrel of Monkeys, where you're being lifted, right? That's what we're here for. I went through my trauma. I did some healing. Now I'm coaching other people, because when you do some healing, you're going to have people cross your path that is going to have a similar experience. And you don't have to be a coach. You don't have to be the teacher. But what you can do is say, I talked to this person. I read this book. I listened to this program. And you be the resource for them. And we're just here to help each other. And let's do that.
What a great message. So, Amie, if listeners want to find out more about what you do or get in touch with you and say, hey, I'd like to work with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. My website is amiewade.com. It is spelled AMIE, amiewade.com. And you can email me, support@amiewade.com. I do most of my stuff on Facebook. So if you go on there, it's Amie Wade, Emotional Resiliency Coach. And I also do a podcast with a friend. It's called Tea Time with Amie and Bev. Sorry. Tea Time with Amie and Bev.
Wonderful. I'll make sure all of that information gets in the show notes. And Amie, thank you so much for being here. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. And I want to thank everybody for listening in. And I know that you've got some actionable stuff out of this. Go out, do some kind of meditation today. Just try it. Give it a shot. 2 minutes, 1 minute, whatever you can do. Just get started. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget to tune in to the next episode of The D Shift. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.